which are inevitable and irreversible once it's burning. So it has to burn all the way down. You cannot shut it down. So solid propellant is less controlled, but it's more efficient.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, in 1956, China started its space program from scratch, but successful launch of its first satellite in 1970 was a big step for China's space exploration program. We'll take a look at the achievement.
1分钟准备。点火，点火。
Nearly half a century ago, China officially stepped into space. Its first satellite, Dongfang-1, was successfully launched from a desert in the country's hinterland. Named The East is Red, the satellite broadcast the song of the same name, a thrill for Chinese people, hearing the familiar melody all the way from space. For a country poor and underdeveloped, hearing the familiar melody all the way from space. For a country poor and underdeveloped, the accomplishment was unimaginable.
In 1958, when Chairman Mao said we should launch our own satellite, we couldn't imagine how we could accomplish such a difficult job. Even now, only a few countries in the world have successfully launched satellites.
The obstacle ahead was rather huge. The then Premier Zhou Enlai and Marshal Nie Rongzhen oversaw the project. They had to mobilize resources of the whole country to make it happen.
And it did happen, 12 years after Chairman Mao called for China to go to space. The successful launch of the satellite has largely boosted China's confidence to dream bigger and bigger as its space program continues to develop.
Ever since Yang Liwei became the first Chinese in space, the universe has been more than a dream come true for the Chinese. Now is the turn of Jing Haipeng and Chen Dong. The Shenzhou-11 will take 2 men to dock with the Tiangong-2 space lab. There, they will conduct experiments during their month-long mission. Join us for the adventure in Destination Space, only on CCTV News.
You're watching CCTV News. This is a special live coverage on the launch of China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft. And for more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Tang Bo in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center and our reporter Han Peng at Aerospace Control Center in Beijing. First, let's go to Tang Bo. Hello there. About 30 minutes to go before the launch of Shenzhou-11. What's the latest you've got?
Well, indeed, in less than 30 minutes, the Long March vehicle carrying the Shenzhou-11 spacecraft will lift off from the launching pad about 1.5 kilometers away from here, from the live position. And at the moment, all launching systems, including the departments of launch center, departments of rockets and spacecraft, are ready. And as you can see behind me, part of the working platform of the umbilical tower are open and showing the rockets to the whole world. And in about 15 minutes before the final launch, all the working staff on and around the umbilical tower must evacuate. And right now the weather condition, it's great. It's not cloudy, even though a little bit windy, but it's not strong enough to affect the launch. And the temperature right now is about 6 degrees centigrade, a little bit cold, but it's getting warmer as the sun is rising. So in general, the weather condition, it's perfect for the final launch of the spacecraft in less than 30 minutes. Pandang.
Right, let's now go to our reporter Han Peng at the Aerospace Control Center in Beijing. Han Peng, we know that a highlight of the Shenzhou-11 mission is its docking with Tiangong-2. So what's the status of Tiangong-2 right now?
Well, Pandong, according to our latest information, the Tiangong-2 is now well positioned up there in the sky for docking. Scientists have successfully maneuvered Tiangong-2 from its previous elliptical orbit to a now nearly round orbit at a height of 393 kilometers above the Earth. That means that while the Tiangong-2 Space Lab is still constantly moving around the Earth, the distance between that Space Lab and the Earth is now set at 393 kilometers. And this will make it much easier and safer for Shenzhou-11, which will carry 2 astronauts to finally approach and to dock with Tiangong-2. And it's also worth noticing that this 393 kilometers is also the same height of China's first space station, which is expected to be launched by the year 2022. And that's why this mission is a very useful simulation for China to collect enough data and to carry out experiments for the planned mission of launching a space station by the year 2022. It's also worth noticing that by the year 2024, the current International Space Station, or the so-called ISS, will retire. And if China's space station is successfully launched, it would be the only space station that human beings are left with. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Our reporters Tang Bo in Zhouquan and Han Peng in Beijing. Chinese scientists are planning to use the country's new space laboratory to conduct a dozen advanced experiments in space. They're going to use the world's first in-space code atomic clock to measure time more accurately and increase the precision of navigation system here on Earth. Scientists will also test a quantum communication system that relays encrypted information between the space lab and stations on ground that will be impossible for third parties to hack. A materials lab on the Tiangong-2 will take advantage of zero-gravity conditions to test 18 new-age composite materials that will be used in future products. In Hollywood blockbuster The Martian, the hero survived by growing potatoes in a base on Mars before finally managing to go back to Earth. Just like in a movie, human beings who want to travel in outer space or migrate to another planet will have to solve a primary problem: how to be self-sufficient in food, oxygen and water. So, can plants from Earth grow normally in space and become a source of food and oxygen for humans? In this space exploration mission, 2 Chinese astronauts, Jing Haipeng and Chen Dong, will carry out China's very first experiment on cultivating plants in space, gathering experience for the future construction of a space station.
The 2 astronauts were being trained on how to grow plants. That training is based on procedures from space experiments. Simulated operations on the ground were also tested, so astronauts could better complete their missions.
We are mainly to test the technology of transporting water and nutrition, and the measurement technique. Secondly, the technology of in-orbit sowing, seed sprouting, and seedling cultivation. Thirdly, to collect data of the amount of oxygen produced by photosynthesis, the number of harvested plants, their nutrition quality and edibility.
And more efficient power. Our reporter Ning Hong visited a coal-energy plant in China's Hebei province to see how the technology is helping China make best use of its abundant resource.
This is a state-of-the-art powerized coal gasification line. It transforms dirty coal into clean ammonia gas that can be used to power factories and light up homes. Instead of releasing tons of carbon dioxide into the air, its major waste product is a recycled solid waste.
This is the largest production line of synthesis ammonia in China, which is using the technology of gasification of coal. Not only it introduced advanced technology to reduce carbon dioxide emission and also greatly reduce the pollutants it produces, it has also greatly increased the efficiency of the usage of coal resource, which takes a major part of China's energy structure.
26-year-old Sun Jian oversees this billion-dollar production line. He only needs a couple of dozen people to run the plant's automated system. Most of his workers sit in front of computers.
This plant has an ideal carbon conversion rate. 90% of the syngas it produces is made of effective ingredients.
The Chinese aerospace company Changzheng Engineering developed this production line in 2005. The company used rocket engineering technology to create a clean coal gasification process. It has developed 37 similar projects across China. Zhu Yuying is a project manager at Changzheng Engineering. He says the company helps China produce clean, safe, and cheap power and chemicals.
This plant is safe, reliable, stable, economical, and environmentally friendly. It has automatic control and automatic protection systems. It can run 358 days a year. 5 years ago, the record in China was just 300 days a year. It also costs less to run this plant.
Coal is the major source of energy in China. Over 90% of China's carbon energy reserves are coal. Coal gasification technology will provide China an effective way to use this abundant resource in more effective and environmentally friendly way. Ning Hong, CCTV, Hebei Province.
Now let's get more on the tasks of China's two astronauts this time. So, Mr. Xu, as we mentioned, a number of experiments will be conducted during the Shenzhou-11 mission, and one of them, as we see in the report, is growing lettuce in space. What's that for exactly?
Well, the growing of lettuce, as the video clip just mentioned, about 30 days cycle, can grow a full lettuce from seed, but also it's a clear indication of sustained space travel. We've had ground facilities that have tested the growing of vegetations. Onboard growing is very important for sustained life support. Just now you've also mentioned about the Martian movie and growing of potato on Mars. And colonizing one place is by growing something on board. I think growing vegetations it's important for food source and for environment purpose. And this is a very important experiment that we have to conduct should we have a sustained long duration of space travel.
So basically, by growing the vegetables themselves, it has two purposes at least. One, by saying life support, it means it can be used for food, right? And on the other hand, maybe it can be used for producing oxygen. Is that correct?
In fact, the plantations not only create oxygens, but also it consumes oxygens at the same time. But photosynthesis process, by processing food, simple food from on board is very important. The recycle of oxygen can be done mechanically or chemically on board by certain equipment. But providing food is the main purpose.
Right. So what are some other major experiments that will be conducted this time in space?
Because of the characteristic of these missions, especially space environment exposed to radiations, as well as the microgravity, lots of experiments that cannot be done on ground can be moved to space. Such as previously we have done the protein crystallization and forming of new materials on board under microgravities, life science experiments, new materials, and new technologies, and especially chemical technologies. So, and also on board this time there will be a robotic robotic experiments. This has been done already by the U.S. There is a robotic arm on board the ISS, or International Space Station, that is done by Canadians. And also there's a segment of the Japanese capsule that's also using robotic arms. For building the building the International Space Station, the robotic arm plays a very important role. Not only maneuvering and moving the different pigments and different parts into position, but also even moving people externally outside the station for different tasks and missions, and even maintenance. And also for this time, we're putting on board a small robotic experiment to see. But this time it's going to be inside, and we will see how the robotic arm moves under microgravity environment.
So let's go to the live footage from Zhouquan Satellite Launch Center. Again, we can see that the 2 astronauts are inside the cabin and doing some final preparations for the launch, which is about 15 minutes away if everything goes according to schedule. And again, they are reading the logbook and their menu and guidance for the launch. And on the right side of your screen is the live footage of inside the Shenzhou-11. So it's confirmed. It's 15 minutes away from the launch of Shenzhou-11. The ground control has just confirmed that. 15 minutes away till the launch. So, Mr. Xu, what will happen in this 15 minutes?
Well, you can see that the astronauts are still reading their menu, and this is to follow the procedures of the 15-minute preparations. You've also just noticed that the hand gesture they have just made, which means that they have received the signal of 15-minute preparations.
So is that a double confirm? They hear it and they need to manually show the confirmation of...
Exactly. Because of the video technologies currently available, we could see that not only the interior but also exterior of the rocket also has a number of video cameras that can capture the launching process, especially the burning of the engines. And also in this preparation final stage, they will be following the final pushing of a few buttons. But during the launching period, especially the burning of the rocket, they would feel very heavy on their seat. So lifting their arms is very difficult. So they will be not doing too much during the launching phase until they're in orbit.
As you just mentioned, there won't be any major physical launch pad with the rocket, and Mr. Xu can see that the supporting structure has been lifted and the rocket is standing by itself.
Exactly.
Right, I think we heard something from ground control.
Yeah, the technical crew knew the launch pad had been evacuated. I would say this seems completely... This is different than the other launches I've seen.
It's less than 15 minutes away from the launch of China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft.
Shenzhou-11, that's it.
You can see that
you see the umbilical lines here.
Period.
Umbilicals.
The 15-minute preparation is done. So 15 minutes away to the launch of China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft. spacecraft. It's a manned space mission. 2 astronauts are on board the spacecraft.
I'm surprised they didn't say their names now.
So, Mr. Xu, what's the technical support at this moment? Will there be more checks?
Yes, there will be a 10-minute preparation before the launch. It's the usual check of everything's well. Should everything is green light, and then the central command will push the launch button. There is also a number of sequences before the launch, so it's automatic process after you push the button.
And we can see that the supporting structure on the launch tower has been evacuated. Is that also according to the schedule? Because it looks like the rocket is standing by itself.
Exactly. You can see there are still a few connections that is still on.
Maybe 3 connection structures linking the two.
Correct, because the connection is for the capsule itself. It will have a constant connection until the last few seconds before it separates from the capsule itself.
So that serves as an evacuation method?
No, this one is going to be only for supporting electronics, electricity, signals, and even probably oxygen into the capsule. For the last few seconds,
now
it will
we
separate.
are going into the 10-minute countdown. Officially, on the right side of your screen is the official countdown. Less than 10 minutes now.
Yes.
So, Mr. you were saying about there will be a 10-minute countdown. What are they doing now? People look very anxiously waiting, and that's Liu Yang, China's female astronaut, is that her?
Yes, that's her. Yes.
So.
And that's the other Wang
Yaping.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these are the team of the astronauts.
They also joined the staff on the ground to see the endeavor of their colleagues. So the official launch time has just been announced. It's 0728 seconds Beijing time. Again, it's 0730 and 28 minutes Beijing time.
I think it's 0730 and
7:30 Beijing time. Less than 10 minutes away.
He's fun. Who did you find?
So, Mr. Xu, you were talking about the preparations in the 10-minute countdown.
Yes, as I said, there are 5 or 6 systems that has been
Shenzhou-11
into one integration mission.
Right.
So, including the launch vehicle, the capsule, the launching site, the TTNC, and the whole mission is played by a few different subsystems, but integrated into one system. So this 10 minutes will check all these subsystems are functioning well internally, and then guarantee that the what they call it ignition time. Ignition time may be not a firing time, but once you put the ignition on, it will have a automatic sequence of lighting up the launch vehicle.
So all the lighting up procedure will happen after the ignition.
Yes, the lighting, ignition is pressed on, and then there will be a few seconds of sparkling, and then the burning of the engine, and then lift off. So it's a small, but very quick process, but it's an automatic process.
So earlier you also mentioned that the rocket will use ground for its thrust. So we can see that there's a small structure beneath the rocket. But beneath that structure, is there any further room?
Yes, there's a few. There's a sizable tunnel that can be used for guiding the propulsions away from the launch vehicle. So it also uses water to suppress the propulsions and especially the burning of the propulsion afterward. So it's a big tunnel underneath.
So describe us the magnitude of the thrust during the initial ignition and blast-off period. How powerful it is.
The total mass of the launch vehicle is about 500 metric tons. So it's going to be very strong blast. And you can, if you're on site, and you can feel the concussion of that blast into your chest if you're 1 or 2 kilometers away from the launch vehicle. So
even you're outside the safe zone.
You're outside the safe zone, but you can feel the concussion coming to you.
It's that powerful.
Yes, it's about in the beginning 10 or 20 seconds, and you can feel it very strong. And then you can see a small light into the deep space getting smaller. But it's very, very good experience if you can go to the launch site.
So it's not hard to imagine the thrust the astronauts will bear during the launch period.
Well, the astronauts were mostly experiencing gravity changes and accelerations.
So is there any system inside the cabin to help them ease the burden a little bit?
Well, the seat itself, it has some mechanisms and also some suspensions, but not much. You have to physically fit for this mission.
Again, you're watching live footage from China's Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in its northwestern region.
Okay.
And the launch of China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft is 5 minutes away. Now we're entering the 5-minute countdown period. What will happen in this 5 minutes, Mr. Xu?
Well, the 5 minutes, they're preparing for the final stage. In fact, it's the last minute or last opportunity that you have on the.
Why are you having problems now?
What will happen in this 5 minutes, Mr. Xu?
Well, the 5 minutes, they're preparing for the final stage. In fact, it's the last minute or last opportunity that you have on the ground to put everything down for the astronauts.
Going to go back to 480p.
And in fact, it's the last minute or last opportunity that you have on the ground to put everything down for the astronauts and for the ground facilities to have final check on everything's green, weather, rocket, capsule.
Oh, come on. We've had that problem since
on everything's green, weather, rocket, capsule, life support. And there's also, in these 5 minutes, there will be a disconnection between the umbilical cord on the power, on the oxygens, and on these supplies. And everything goes to a remote mode, which means in TT&C mode.
So earlier you were talking about TT&C and ground control. You mentioned there's an uplink and a downlink. So what role does the two play? Who's in charge of these two systems?
The uplink is always giving command to the space vessel.
And that's the Beijing Space Aerospace Control Center?
It's
the rocket.
The control is done in China.
Now we're watching live footage from Beijing. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and senior CPC official Liu Yunshan are watching the live footage of the launch in Beijing.
Where's she?
These two are also very senior leaders.
Yeah, one of them is reading a magazine.
They're both the members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee.
The Politburo Standing Committee.
So the Chinese government has put such an emphasis in this time's manned space mission. Two senior leaders and one senior military leaders have showed up.
3 minutes to launch.
You're watching live footage from China's Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. The official launch time for the Shenzhou-11 spacecraft is 7:30 a.m. Beijing time. October
This is
You're watching live
Chen.
footage from China's Shenzhou-11 Satellite Launch Center.
Well, from 3 minutes to that.
Seconds away, 1.5 minutes away till the launch. That
should be interesting. I've never seen a long march launch live.
Center.
Yeah, something I find strange about long march launches that you'll see during the launch sequence is the LRBs, or liquid rocket boosters, separate. Wait, what? Okay, never mind. The LRBs separate,
a big moment,
and simultaneously the first stage separates.
1 minute countdown.
1分钟准备。50秒。
50 seconds.
Well, this should be interesting, though. Around 30 seconds, the umbilicals are going to retract. Never mind, now the umbilicals are going to retract. So you can see the umbilicals retracting there.
30秒。
30 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds from the launch of China's Shenzhou-11.
20秒。
20 seconds.
Yeah, Zhou Chen. My footage. There's a flag of the People's Republic of China.
9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1，点火。
Ignition and liftoff of Shenzhou of the Long March 2 vehicle carrying Shenzhou-11.
31秒。
You can see the thermal protection tiles falling off there.
30分31秒409毫秒。
Long March 2F. Wait,
转
what?
弯，程序转弯，东风程序转弯。
So there goes Shenzhou for a 2-day rendezvous with Tiangong 2 or Heavenly Palace 2. There she goes.
青山 USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥控信号正常。 双城光学雷达跟踪正常。东风光学 USB 雷达跟踪正常。遥测信号正常。
Spacecraft has blasted off from China's Shenzhou-11 Satellite Launch Center. The official blast-off time is 7:30 and 31 seconds Beijing time. So far,
everything's
the
normal.
rocket is flying in its designed program. Again, the Long March 2F rocket carrying China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft has blasted off. According to ground control, everything is normal so far. So, Mr. Xu, what do you make of the
1.5 minutes roughly?
Well, you can see right now is the exterior camera, as I mentioned.
You can see the smoke trail.
To two of the strap-on boosters. You would see probably in a later stage the separation of the strap-on booster. And there's also a video clip of the astronauts who's also doing well on board the capsule. So these are following of. There are two ways of following the launching process. One is optical, one is infrared. And some of these images are infrared images.
There goes the separation of the
and we can see
escape tower.
The boosters are been jettisoned.
Yes, the escape tower has been jettisoned.
A bit of blur on the camera there.
These are two boosters.
The
2 out of the 4.
2 out of the 4, and it's in the final stage, and it's going to be separated.
There they go. There goes the separation. See what I mean? The first stage goes there.
The bottom of the rocket.
So why not just separate them simultaneously?
The infrared footage can see clearly the 4 strap-on boosters has been
You're going to see the
separated from
other,
the main,
the first stage in the plasma trail. The second stage.
And we've just heard ground control saying that a monitoring station in Taiyuan City have discovered a target, which is the rocket.
I've connected
you can see the flying route or the direction it flies is from Jiuquan all the way to the Pacific. So it's flying eastward. Yes. So you could see a number of facilities will catch the signals from the Shenzhou-11.
So it's
Anyone
like a
face bets
relay
on?
procedure.
There goes the fairing.
Each of the ground station have its own coverage. Yes, it's going to be a relay process.
Anyone want to place bets on whose which poor bastards house the first stage is going to land on?
So the capsule is fully exposed to the environment, which has no atmosphere at this moment.
Right.
Or very
so
little.
what's the altitude right now?
The atmosphere would be about 50 to 60 kilometers, and beyond 60 kilometers, what we call a suborbital, where we can separate the fairings, and up to 110 kilometers altitude would be the outer space.
So is Jiuquan satellite still in control or in monitoring at this stage?
But as I mentioned, the TTNC is controlled in Xi'an. So the center station is in Xi'an. All ground facilities were connected in ground-based into Xi'an, and Xi'an will give the control and command of this.
So you can see the engine
which particular
to the right of the screen.
Is this footage showing? Is this the rocket's first stage?
I think it's the main engine itself.
Second stage.
On the right side, right below, is the burning of the main engine. On the left side is the small attitude control engine.
Vernier engine.
What do you make of the performance of the astronauts?
The astronauts
are
experiencing the acceleration at this moment.
Is this the most difficult part?
As you see the burning of the engine, it's not really tough at this moment. After the beginning phase is completed, there's a stable burning of the engine, so the astronaut should feel very comfortable at this moment. And they are already in outer space.
However, if the engine were to cut, they would fall right back. Wait, what? What? I'm sorry, what? Give me a second here.
After the beginning phase
it's back, okay.
There's a stable burning of the engine, so the...
Okay, so let's just assume there was a bit of a glitch there.
Very comfortable at this moment. And they are already in outer space.
So right now...
Okay. Yeah,
after the beginning phase is completed, there's a stable burning of the engine, so the astronaut should feel very comfortable at this moment. And they are already in outer space.
So right now, you're watching live footage.
I'm utterly confused at this
6
point.
minutes ago, Long March 2 F rocket carrying China's Shenzhou-11 spacecraft was blasted off, and so far everything's good and runs according to schedule.
I would say plan rather than schedule.
And as our expert just to put it, the rocket, along with the spacecraft, is officially in outer space.
At this moment, it's gaining momentum and speed, so it can reach the cosmic one speed of circling around the Earth, and also reaching the same inclinations and orbit of the Tiangong 2, so that
is that 393 kilometers altitude?
Yes, the International Space Station is also about the same altitude, so it's the 393 at this moment, and the future Chinese space station is going to be the same altitude as well.
So the blast-off will push the the Shenzhou-11 to that same altitude as Tiangong 2 is running now, or it will turn to a lower orbit and then move on to that higher altitude later?
It's going to be in the lower orbit, but in the same inclination, so that the maneuver of the Shenzhou-11 in the coming 3 days, will bring it to the same orbit of the Tiangong 2. After the launching, it will be entering into the apogee point, and then from the perigee point, it will have a small burning of the engine to provide more propulsions to reach that particular orbit. And this picture you can see also still is the burning of the main engine. Yes.
So the main engine is the largest compartment in the whole rocket, is that correct?
Yes, the largest compartment is given to the fuel tank. The main engine is a smaller segment at the end, but it burns all the fuels that belongs to the fuel tank. The fuel tank takes most of the room of the launch vehicle.
Right.
So most of the vehicle's weight and size
and
is
you can
from
see
the fuel
from the picture on the
tanks.
right side is the empty seat of the third passenger, which is not available at this mission.
You can see the solar panels.
And we can see the commander is still reading the menu and guiding.
This is an interesting picture. This is the outside of the capsule. You can see
Shenzhou.
is the solar panel that has been is in the folding position. Once in orbit, it will deploy and collect solar powers to provide power in the.
And that shining object behind the vehicle, what's that?
That's the reflection of either the sun or the moon.
So it's a sun or moon, basically. That's it.
So one important mark is that the opening of the solar panels to mark the successful launch of the Shenzhou-11 spacecraft.
That's very true. Once you're in position, only you're in position can you open the solar panel.
So China's
separation of Shenzhou-11
spacecraft. So the stage 2 of the second stage of carrier rocket has separated from the main vehicle.
You can see from the camera, it's on the rocket itself. So the rocket now is separated from the capsule.
You can see did a fuel dump, I think.
So the capsule is on its own in space right now, or there will be?
Yes, the rocket is separated from the capsule, so the capsule is now on itself with this service module as well as the flight module, flight capsule. It's on the
re-entry keeps on the orbital module,
readjusting the orbit.
So that might be the footage from the camera on the Shenzhou-11 spacecraft.
I believe so, yes.
So I'm going to wait until solar panel deploying before I end the video.
Ground control has just reported
No,
everything.
that's the view from the second stage, because you can see Shenzhou there.
Normally,
You can
the
see that's
shining object
Shenzhou.
is the sun, I guess.
And to the left of it is Shenzhou.
Yes. This is also the exterior camera on board the Shenzhou-11 mission.
And the material covering the facade of the spacecraft doesn't look like steel or metal. It looks like some fabric.
It's like a coat that we put on board over the capsule. It's for thermal purpose. And in fact, if you're exposed to the sun, you can get very high temperature. But if you're in the shadow, the temperature can differ from a few hundred degrees centigrade.
So basically, you're traveling in two extremes.
Yes, two extremes, and this is to provide the preliminary.
There you go. There's the
And the solar
panel.
panel is opening.
There you go. Solar panel has deployed.
And by this point, we can almost say that launch is a success. The solar panel on Shenzhou-11 has opened.
No, you see they're
Senior
interested.
leaders are watching live footage of the launch process in Beijing.
Okay, since the cell phones are open,
And that's the Aerospace Command and Control Center.
Then until the rendezvous, I'm going to end this video here. I'm about 725. That was launched Shenzhou-11 by the
conversation we heard. Every
from
working position is
Joe
reported.
Chen. I'm about
Normal
725.
operation
Goodbye.
at this stage.